Zeitoun, page 105. In Baton Rouge, Kathy was again driving to kill time, her car full of children. Needing distractions from the news and the radio, it was getting worse every hour. She stopped periodically at whatever stores or restaurants were open. Zeitoun had sounded so calm on the phone the previous night, before his phone had given out. But since then, conditions in the city had devolved. She was hearing reports of unchecked violence, widespread chaos, thousands presumed dead. What was her lunatic husband doing there? She tried his phone again and again, hoping he had somehow found a way to charge it. She tried the home phone, in case the water had miraculously dropped below the phone box and the wiring was undamaged. She got nothing. The lines were dead. On the radio, they were reporting that another 10,000 National Guardsmen were being sent to the region, about one-third of them directed to maintain order. There would soon be 21,000 National Guard troops in the area, coming from all over the country: West Virginia, Utah, New Mexico, Missouri. How would her husband be so calm when every branch of the armed forces was scrambling? She turned off the radio and tried Zeitoun again. Nothing. She knew she shouldn't worry yet, but her mind took dark turns. If she was out of touch with her husband already, how would she know if anything was wrong? How would she know if he was alive, in danger, dead? She was getting ahead of herself. He was in no danger. The winds were gone, and now it was just water, placid water, and troops were on their way. No cause for worry. Returning to her family's house in Baton Rouge, she found her mother there. She had come to deliver ice. She greeted all the kids and looked at Kathy. "Why don't you take off that thing and relax?" she said, pointing to Kathy's fob. "He's not here. Be yourself." Kathy suppressed a dozen thousand things she wanted to say, and instead channeled her rage into packing. She would take her kids and go to a motel, a shelter, anywhere, maybe to Arizona. It just wasn't working in Baton Rouge, and it was all so much worse not knowing where Zeitoun was. Why did that man insist on staying? It was a cruel thing, really. He wanted to make sure that his family was safe, but Kathy, his wife, wasn't afforded the same certainty. When they next spoke, she was determined to get him to leave the city. It didn't matter any more why he wanted to stay. Forget the house and property. Nothing could be worth it. In New Orleans, Zeitoun was invigorated. He had never felt such urgency and purpose. In his first day in his flooded city, he had already assisted in the rescue of 5 elderly residents. There was a reason he now knew that he had remained in the city. He had felt compelled to stay by a power beyond his own reckoning. He was needed. Zeitoun and Frank's next stop was Zeitoun's property, back on Claiborne at 5010. He and Kathy had owned the home, a 2-story residence, for 5 years. It was a rental unit with 4 to 6 tenants at any given time. When they arrived, they found Todd Gambo, one of Zeitoun's tenants, on the front porch, a bottle of beer in his hand. Todd was a stout man in his late 30s, and he had lived there as long as the Zeitouns had owned the building. He worked as a mechanic at a speedy oil change and tune-up franchise most of the week, and had a part-time job delivering lost luggage for the airport. He was a good tenant that never had a late check or any sort of problem from him. He stood up, incredulous, as Zeitoun approached. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Really? I came to check on the building," Zeitoun said, smiling, knowing how ludicrous it sounded. "I wanted to check on you." Todd couldn't believe it. Zeitoun and Frank got out of the canoe and tied it to the porch. They were both happy to stand on solid ground again. Todd offered them beers. Zeitoun passed. Frank accepted and sat on the porch steps while Zeitoun went inside. Todd lived in his first-floor unit of the building and had brought all of his possessions up to the second floor. The front rooms and hallways of the house were full of furniture, chairs and desks stacked on tables and couches. Various electronics saved from the flood were now resting on the dining room table. It looked like a haphazard estate sale. The damage to the house was extensive, but not irreparable. Zeitoun knew the basement would be a loss and might not be habitable for some time, but the first and second floors had not been badly harmed, and this gave Zeitoun comfort. There was a lot of dirt, mud, grime, much in front from Todd moving things upstairs and rushing in and out of the house, but the damage could have been far worse. Zeitoun learned from Todd that because the house phone box was above the water line, the landline was still working. He immediately dialed Kathy's cell phone. "Hello, I'm here," he said. She almost screamed. She hadn't realized how worried she'd been. She said, Arabic for "praise the Lord be to God." "Now get out." He told her he would not be leaving. He told her about the woman in the bath, ballooning dress in the foyer, how he had lifted the ladder to save her. He told her about the fisherman and Frank and the two elderly couples. He was talking so fast, she laughed. So when you plan to leave, she asked. I don't, he said. He tried to explain. If he left, what would he do? He would be in a home full of women with nothing to occupy himself. He would eat, watch TV, and be left to worry from afar. Here in the city, he could stay and monitor developments. He could help where needed. They had a half-dozen properties to look after, he reminded her. He was safe, he had food, he could take care of himself and prevent further damage. Really? I want to see this, he said. He wanted to see everything that had happened and would happen with his own eyes. He cared about the city and believed in his heart he could be of use. So you feel safe, she asked. Of course, he said. This is good. Kathy knew that she couldn't dissuade him, but how would she explain to her children as they watched images of the city drowning that their father was there by choice, paddling around in a second-hand canoe? She tried to reason with him, noting that the TV reporters were saying that things were only getting worse and that the water would soon become infected with all manner of pollutants, oil, garbage, animal remains, and that diseases would soon follow. Zeitoun promised to be careful. He promised to call back at noon the next day from the house in Claiborne. Call me every day at noon, she said. He said he would. You better, she said.